What it is just talking to Baton Rouge. It's meeting a group of people here in this room at Beausoleil about what's going on in East Baton Rouge Parish schools. We've finished, I think, a very successful year. Been some ups and downs. We're not always going to make the right decision. But I think overall we've done a good job of trying to build a foundation. And I think, I talk about one brick at a time. And that's really what we're doing. And it's all about leadership.
You mentioned one team, one mission. Explain what that means.
Well, I'll tell you, it means that every person is just as important as the next. And I'll be honest with you, it's something that we're working on and we need to do better on. I don't know that everybody understands the ownership they have in their schools. And that's really what I'm trying to convey to our principals and our staff, that we are all one entity. One team, one mission means we're all just as important as the next person, whether you're serving food in the cafeteria or mowing the grass or teaching in the classroom. Of course, we all know that the teacher in the classroom is where the rubber meets the road, and it's the most important person in the district. But we've also got to realize that every one of us plays a part in the education of our children. And so if everybody understands the importance of their part and they get this one team, one mission, they'll understand that they're the most important person in the district. And I want everybody to feel that way. We've had a great year so far. We've got about 11 more days in this school year, and we're still looking forward to the rest of the year. But truly, this has been a learning experience for me. As much experience as I have, Ted, this has been a learning experience for me. I believe you always learn. I love what I do, and I believe you're always learning no matter what you're doing. And one day, I'm not sure what I'm going to do when I grow up, I'll have another job somewhere, but probably not. I think this is going to be the last one for me. But seriously, I want to echo what was said earlier by Ms. Stovall, that we thank Regions, Jeff, we thank Regions Bank for supporting this program. This is the last lunch with the Supe, and it probably should be called Lunch with Supe, not with the Supe. Lunch with Supe, which is, we always get Supe to begin with. So, but I really appreciate not only Region's support of our program here, but the foundation support, Keela, Ted, and all of the support from the foundation. And I also want to thank my staff. We've had an interesting year, and this is, Ted told you the truth. Some days we'd come to work and I'd look at Donica and Michelle and Adam and say, "Are y'all going to come back tomorrow?" And they would, if they assured me they were coming back tomorrow, then I said, "Okay, I'm coming back tomorrow too." And but we've had a great year. Barbara Freiberg is our board president. I want to thank you, Barbara, for your support and your leadership on the board. We do have one principal here, Ms. Cheryl Matthews. Raise your hand, Ms. Matthews. Polk Elementary. And Ms. Matthews is going to be moving into a professional development role for us at the school board, and we are appreciative to you, Ms. Matthews, for that and the leadership you bring there. We've had a great year. In the school business, I used to tell my principals all the time and my teachers when I was a principal that, celebrate the good, because when something bad happens, it's not if something bad happens, it's when. When you have 42,000 students, 6,000 employees, a big city, stuff happens occasionally. So when you get out the good information, and people will say, "Oh, heck, that's a great school, don't worry about it." And so we've had challenges this year. I think we're always going to have challenges. But that's a learning process. We will get better. We're going to always get better, and that's what we're going to try to do. So what I'd like to do is just say some of the good things that have happened this year and just talk about where we're headed in the next year. First off, I want to say that this coming year, next year, we will put a computer device in every child's hand, grade 5 through 8. That's never been done before in East Baton Rouge Parish, and it will roll up every year after that. So it's a device in a one-to-one device in every student's hand, 5 through 8. Louisiana this year has 3 presidential scholars. 3 in Louisiana. 1 is from Jesuit High School, 2 are from Baton Rouge High School. Congratulations to them. And I think what we've done this year, when you say, what do you do? What is your mission? Our motto has been one team, one mission. So what does that mean? What that means is that every person is just as important as the next. Whether it's the person in the cafeteria, the person mowing the grass, the teacher in the classroom, I consider everyone who is not teaching support for the teacher. That's where the rubber meets the road, and we have to support them. And so every one of us is no better than anyone else. We are all supporting the mission, and when we all support the mission, then the mission's going to get done. But I will tell you one of the things we're going to be looking at for next year, and that's customer service. And I've talked about it all year long. And I've talked about one team, one mission, but I want to really make sure that people understand what that means. Because I'm not sure that everybody really gets exactly what I'm talking about. The customer service piece is that we work for the people of Baton Rouge. We work for the people of Baton Rouge. And we have to humble ourselves and make sure they understand we appreciate you and we care about you. I think probably the biggest thing we can do is to make sure our children and our parents know that we care about them. It's doing the little bitty things, the proactive things, those little bitty things that you don't think about that make a difference in a person's life. And I know it's hard. We have a lot of students. We have a lot of schools. But it's the little bitty simple things that make the difference in going from good to great. We're not great yet. We're pretty good. And I will tell you, Ted told the story of La Belle Aire Elementary, which is a phenomenal school. And it's getting better. And I've always said that when you just judge a school by one method, and that is a test, you're not getting the true indication of what that school is really like. And I talk about that in AAA. Academics is always number one. It has to be. It's always what we will talk about first. It's always we're driving forward to do better academically. But the arts are critical. The arts expand the vocabulary and the knowledge and the experience of children. I love the arts. I bought a painting from an 8th grader at Westdale last week. Bob Marley. And my kids fought over it this past weekend. And so I don't know who's going to get it. I may just keep it. But it's a phenomenal painting this young lady did at our Celebrate event. And I want to talk about the Celebrate event. The Celebrate event was at McKinley Middle Magnet last week. It was scheduled for downtown. It just poured. I mean, the timing couldn't have been worse. I mean, at 2 o'clock or 12 o'clock, it just came down. But that's okay. Donica had been working on that event for probably 2 or 3 months. It was a phenomenal event. And we had hundreds, if not 1,000 or more people at that event. And it was just phenomenal. And this is where that young lady sat from the beginning to the end and painted this painting. And I would go in the gym and look at it. And when it first started, I said, it looks like an Indian. She said, come back later. And so I came back later. And finally, it was Bob Marley. And who would have known? The arts are so critical, folks. It's absolutely critical that our children get their hands on a paintbrush, music, whatever it is in the arts, whether it's dance, dramatic arts, all of those are so important. We have our arts director right here in the house. It's just so important. That's the second A. But the third one is athletics. Kids learn by doing. Athletics are important because some of our best teachers are coaches because they teach time management. They teach discipline. They teach the difference in right from wrong, doing the right thing. And they teach leadership. And that's what this whole system is about, is leadership. How we're going to lead those below us and how we're going to set an example for those with us. So please continue to eat. Don't stop and listen. I want you to listen, but keep eating. I don't want to stop that. So what have we done this year? And I'm going to be very brief. We've tried to set a foundation. I mentioned Water the Bamboo before. Water the Bamboo is about this Southeast Asian bamboo. It's called timber bamboo. They plant it in the ground. It sits for 3 years in the ground. When it comes out of the ground, it grows 90 feet in 60 days. You can hear it growing. That's a metaphor for laying a foundation. And I believe that's what we're doing right now. I call it one brick at a time. So I think we've laid a foundation. I think we've talked about customer service and what we expect. And I'm going to have some mystery shoppers next year who go into our schools and just say, I have a child who's going to go here. Tell me about your school. And it may be a minute or it may be an hour in that school. What's your experience? And you can have a great experience in a minute. So what experiences did you have for us to know how to get better? I've never micromanaged people. I don't want people to think that we're hovering over them. I don't do that. We don't hover over people. We say, we want you to get better. You be creative. But probably the most important thing that I'm going to try to instill in our people, particularly our principals, is an ownership of their school. And think about it a minute, an ownership of their school. This is your school. And some of that is our fault because we have an outside corporation who does maintenance, yard work, and things like that. And when you have an outside corporation, you think, and I'm a principal, and I go, okay, they do that. But we have to cross those types of things. And I've told the principal, buy a pressure washer. Well, I'm trying to check one out from there's three for 80 schools, okay? Buy you one. It's $300. Buy a little small mower. If you have a program tomorrow, but your yard's not scheduled to be mowed in 6 days, get your custodian to push that little mower right around the front. Just make the front look good. We have to do more than just say, can you come help me on this? We have to own our schools. And when we own our schools, the kids will own the schools. When the kids own the schools, you've gotten to where you want to get. We're in the middle of aligning budget. We're in the middle of budgetary meeting at 3 o'clock today, I think, Michelle. 3 o'clock today, we have a budget meeting. We're going to sit there and talk about our budget. We've been operating in a deficit. I don't want us to operate in a deficit. We inherited a deficit. We're going to get out of that deficit. We've reassigned the way we assign teachers and staff in schools. We've done a different way of doing that. We've looked at departmental meetings, at departmental staff, the way we do that. And so I think all of that is very important. We've also started 3 new schools. And let me say that. Estruma High School was I think it was the 3rd return school from the State Department of Education. We're in the middle of planning that. It's going to open as 3 components a year from this August. And now that school had about 2,000 students in it in 3 grades many years ago. It was built in 1948. It has phenomenal bones to it, and we're going to redo that school. So that school is going to have a traditional component. It's also going to have the Estruma Middle Magnet we're going to bring back and have the magnet school component, but it's also going to have a workforce development component. We're going to have a residential and a commercial building there, where in the residential, for example, kids can learn to build a house. And we're going to partner with Habitat for Humanity, where they can go out and give back. We have to teach our children to give back to society. It doesn't matter if they're rich or poor. That's giving. That's philanthropy. That's doing something for someone else. And it gives them a sense of purpose when we do these kinds of things. And then we have a commercial piece that's going to do pipe fitting. And we have probably the largest chemical corridor in the United States, other than maybe Houston area, right down this river. And those kind of things, we have to be able to put our kids into those businesses with a certification to be able to get those jobs if they're not going to attend a 2 or 4-year college. And then finally, we've talked about public relations. Adonica's our communications person. We've redone our website. We have rebranded the way we are in East Baton Rouge Parish schools. And I think it's phenomenal. So I want you to take a look at the new website and things like that. And of course, Lee High School is opening in August. A school like no other. It's a school that is of digital arts, engineering, biomedical. It's going to be phenomenal. It's completed now. We're giving tours occasionally to different people, and hopefully we can give some of the alumni of Lehigh a tour over there as well before we open that school. So I am honored to be the superintendent in East Baton Rouge Parish. I have enjoyed what I've done every day. Some days it's a little harder to go to work than others, but that's okay. That's just the way life is, isn't it? It's not if you get knocked down, it's if you get back up. So I want to thank you for supporting Lunch with a Supe this year. We've had a great experience here, and I look forward to another great year. Kids will be out of here a week from Monday. I'm looking forward to that too. But that's when the real work begins, and you all know that. Thank y'all for supporting us. Appreciate what you do.
My name is Keela Stovall, and I'm the Executive Director for the Foundation for East Baton Rouge School System. I am newly appointed and very grateful for the job, and I have been here since the 1st of March. And I am just thrilled about all that I've learned about the schools, what's going on. Every day I learn something new, and it is just overwhelming, the positive things that are happening for the children in East Baton Rouge Parish. So I'm glad that you're here and that you're going to get to hear directly about that. At the foundation, we have a few projects we like to focus in on STEM, and we are very fortunate today to have a special guest, Rachel Alexander, who is the Director of Special Initiatives for the US 2020 program. And so she is here, and she's just going to say a few brief words to us about the relationship that Baton Rouge has as a community with the US 2020 network. So, Rachel.
I live in Oakland, California, so it was a little bit of a trip to come out here, and it's been so beautiful, and everyone has been so welcoming, and I've been wanting to be here for some significant amount of time for a while now, because Baton Rouge is doing some really exciting things in STEM education, and specifically around STEM mentoring, which is what US 2020, our national initiative, focuses on. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about US 2020, and then really I would love to hear any thoughts or questions you all have about STEM mentoring. Can you hear me? Need more? I'll try to speak up. Does that work? I'll project. Okay, great. Perfect. I'll speak louder. Can you all hear me now? Is it okay? Okay. Just give me a sign if you need me to speak louder. So US 2020 is a national initiative that grew out of conversations at the White House in 2013 around the country's STEM education challenge. And I feel like that challenge is probably really familiar to most of you all in the room. One of the things that came out of that conversation was the importance of STEM role modeling and STEM mentoring, and how important it is for students to see somebody, to be able to connect what scientists and engineers do with an actual face, an actual person in their lives. A lot of STEM professionals that we talked to had a strong mentor in their lives, usually informal. Often it was a parent, sometimes it was a parent's friend. The truth is, when you don't have a role model or you don't have a mentor in STEM, it can be really hard to imagine what it is, who actually makes those cell phones or those video games that you play every day, and how you could become someone who has that kind of role. So the idea of US 2020 is to grow the amount of STEM mentoring that's happening across the country and the quality of that STEM mentoring, specifically for students who are underrepresented in STEM. So we have a specific focus on girls, on underrepresented students of color, on low-income students who often don't have easy access to those role models and those connections that ultimately spark inspiration and access to STEM careers. And so we're trying to grow that quality and quantity of STEM mentoring all over the country. We do that in a couple of ways, but the reason I am here today is because one of the ways that we do it is by working with communities across the country who are interested in using multi-sector collaboration to grow a whole ecosystem around STEM mentoring in their community. And Baton Rouge is one of the cities that's doing that, and doing that really beautifully here as a role model across the country. A little bit of history on how we came to be connected with Baton Rouge. US 2020 had a competition in 2013, 2014, where we invited communities around the country to give us their best ideas for how to grow STEM mentoring locally. And 52 cities from across the country applied. Baton Rouge is one of 9 finalists that are now working with US 2020 out of that group. So a really select group that made it to this final round. We're giving a number of resources that kind of help accelerate the work. One of them is a national community of learning and practice. So Kim Fossey, who's sitting in the back there, about twice a year comes and visits with other cities across the country who are doing this work. We kind of share best practices, identify bright spots and challenges, and together are trying to grow the capacity of communities like Baton Rouge to serve more students and serve all students with amazing STEM mentoring. So you should identify Kim or Ted or Keela at some point during this lunch and ask them about the amazing STEM mentoring that's happening through the foundation. Here in Baton Rouge, there have been some fantastic teams from IBM, from Exxon, from a number of really foundational anchor corporations here in Baton Rouge that have done incredible work with students. You should go to the foundation's website and check out some videos of kids getting really excited about STEM and working with their mentors. All that great work is happening here. We are trying to grow STEM mentoring by working with communities like yours. We also have a number of initiatives coming up that serve to highlight the great work in STEM mentoring that's happening across the country. One of them is an awards platform. So in the middle of August, we'll be at the White House complex giving awards to bright spots in STEM mentoring from across the country. So you can go to our website or again talk to any of the folks from the foundation here in the room to learn about how you can apply for these awards. But there are sets of awards for companies that create really fantastic culture for mentoring and volunteerism. There's a set of awards for youth serving settings that are doing a great job of supporting STEM volunteers. And we also have an awards category honoring really fantastic public-private partnerships to support STEM mentoring. And so I can imagine that there's a lot of that happening in this room. If you're interested in learning more, you can talk to me, you can talk to anyone from the foundation. But we would love to have you all participate in those and really highlight some of the great work that you all are generating. So I would love, if I have a little bit more time, to just hear any of your questions or thoughts. I can tell you more about US 2020. I, in particular, would love to hear your questions or thoughts about STEM mentoring, what you've seen happen successfully here in Baton Rouge, what you think might be a barrier, a challenge that we could be looking at nationally to try to make sure that more STEM professionals can connect in high-quality ways with the students who need it most here in Baton Rouge. So, any thoughts or questions?
My name is Roy Heidelberg. I was a co-author on a report that was published some years ago now that looked at the school district restructuring and governance approaches in response to some talk about another district forming here in East Baton Rouge Parish. We were approached by the Baton Rouge Area Chamber and the Baton Rouge Area Foundation to do this report. And initially the focus was primarily upon what would be the financial effect of another district forming here in the parish. And this district was then attempted to form as the Southeast District. But in our research, what we looked at also was what the implications would be for the rise, what was talked about then as the Baton Rouge Achievement Zone, or basically the incorporation of more charters here in the parish. So what we focused on was this idea of legacy costs. So legacy costs, it's a rather simple concept. All that these refer to are post-employment benefits from employers to employees that do not include retirement costs. So it's largely accounted for by healthcare costs. So these are agreements or promises that have been entered into by the Baton Rouge Parish school system and for the people who work within the school system after they retire. And so what we looked at were the effects that this would have on the school system itself from a fiscal and financial standpoint if more charter schools opened up, and if those charter schools or if the organizations that opened these charter schools did not pay certain amounts of these legacy costs. So the simple math of this is that, and you can find out more of this information if you go and look at the report. The way that we fund the schools is through MFP and taxes. That money often is kind of broken down on a per pupil basis. And so in EBR back in 11 and 12, when we did this report initially, the projected MFP here was a little over $4,000 and about $6,500 in tax revenue. They had a bonded indebtedness on a per pupil basis of about $70 and legacy costs of about $866. So that kind of gives you a grounding. $866 per student is being paid towards these legacy costs. So what we then looked at were what would be the impact of the creation of a Southeast district and then of an Achievement Zone district if they did not pay any legacy costs, because there had been no talk about them paying any legacy costs at the time. And what we found was that the cost for these legacy costs on a per pupil basis for the district would increase by roughly 50% to nearly $1,300 per student. What that means is that is $1,300 that is not being applied to the educational services that are required of the school district itself. Now, with the Southeast breakaway, some of that could be accounted for by a change in the MFP. But with the charter schools, it doesn't quite work that way, because the way that the charter schools work is that they get the same MFP that the school district does itself. And so the charter schools presented an increased problem that was not being talked about at the time, and it's why Ted asked me to come and speak about this. So the bottom line is, as new schools open, as new districts are formed, if there is not any accounting for the existing obligations of the long-term organization of EBRPSS, that burden will then fall on the students and the organization and cause perhaps short-term but more likely long-term stressors in the operations of the organization. And this is just a point that I think Ted wanted me to come and talk about and perhaps answer questions about. So that's just an overview of what legacy costs are. And so I'll take a few questions right now if we have a little bit of time.
We're in the middle of a system that has 42,000 students. Think about 42,000 children. They will make mistakes. Not only they make mistakes, but we make mistakes. So I think the fact of the matter is kids need to have fun learning. They need to come in, need to work with their principals. They need to love their teachers. The teachers need to love them. So I think that's the important part, that I want kids to want to come to school. And so I invite those parents out there to take a look at EBR. Your teachers are going to be calling you this summer to get you ready for a new school year, and I think we're going to have an even better year next year.
If people have questions like more information, what should they do?
EBRschools.org. Go there. You can call us 922-5400 at the school board office. My door is always open. Your school's doors are always open. Visit us and see what we look like. Thank you.